Got this little thing at the store a couple months ago, man. It's kind of cool. Hey, let's cut that for copyright purposes. Well, welcome back for week 3 of Halloween month 2022, and this week's selection, you know, I don't hate this movie, I don't love this movie, but I just want to be fair with this movie. I mean, maybe it's not the one we deserved in this series, but definitely one we needed. And hell, the more I think about it, it is the one we deserved. I mean, because it did exactly what it should have done. Erase that fucking taste out of our mouths that 2016 abomination left in our mouths. Now, look, I've gotten it my damn self. Oh, you didn't like the movie because it's all female. This, you don't like women. No, I got no problem with women. You could have done an all-female Ghostbusters, no problem. The problem is, what they didn't do was write a fucking script. Go watch that movie again. Tell me if you have any sense that a script was written out. I can't seem to find it. So we're going to take care of that one later on, because that's going to take probably 3 hours. Long man bad, I know. So instead we're going to talk about this one, Ghostbusters Afterlife. I think it was really nicely done, but there had some issues in it. You know, it's a fine movie. It's a fine movie. I just want to address some things, you know, go through it and see what's going on, likes, dislikes, but I just want to be fair. I just want to be fair with it. So let's go ahead and dive into this. We start this one out with a shot of a mountain with some ominous looking activity going on around it, and a nice shot into the sky. Okay, you got my attention, movie. A dark figure we can't make out races along in his truck, and it looks like he's escaping Shandor Mining Company, a familiar name. He races through this town, covering up something inside his truck. Nice high-speed turn past a burger joint. Guess it's no time to eat. But back inside the truck, we get a glimpse of what this one is hiding. A ghost trap, so we must be dealing with someone who knows of the Ghostbusters technology. But not one for driving, as he rolls his truck over into a cornfield, shakes it off, and runs up to a farmhouse, where he runs up to the porch and flips a lever, and that activates some kind of giant capacitors. A nice shot of the ground showing some rumblings, and he looks back out into the field awaiting whatever is stalking him. Holds the trap up to show he's got something inside there with that familiar glow, as if he's tempting something to come get him, come get him. He's obviously setting up a trap as he pushes the foot pedal down, and the capacitors just go boom. Trying again and again, he realizes that the plan isn't going to work, so he runs inside, goes for a drawer, and pulls out, another familiar gadget, the PKE meter. He proceeds to put the trap inside a hidden compartment on the floor and has a seat. But while sitting, a mist enters from behind him. Ooh, nice foggy smoke machine effects as the fog turns into a figure. PKE meter goes crazy and the figure dissipates. Still feeling its presence, he flips the PKE meter into taser mode, but too late. Some hands pop out of the chair. These look familiar. I think we have now established that he is being chased by Zool. Scene goes silent and we get an outside shot of the farm as the entity flies away. Feeling safe to say this is Egon, his body goes limp and his PKE meter falls to the floor. But it starts to show signs of activity, and you know what that means. There's a spirit about. After this exciting intro, we cut to a bowl of something. A mother is cutting a son's hair in the kitchen right above his food. And just like that, this movie fucking disgusts me. Tune in next week. Okay. I said I'd be fair. I'm gonna be fair. All right. Let's continue. And then we are introduced to the star of this little show, Phoebe, who is, without a doubt, absolutely the spitting image of Egon.
Neighbor's electricity is running out of phase, so I tied in and bumped us up to 220.
As it's causing a problem for her in conducting her experiments when there's a knock at the door. The son can't be bothered to answer the door because he claims he's not an adult, so the mom takes on the task. It's the landlord demanding his rent. The mom admits to being an unreliable tenant and asks for more time. She has to go take care of her father's estate out on the farm, and she'll gladly take care of the matter when she gets back. He says when she leaves, he's changing the locks. So they leave. While going on their journey, we see the son is good for something as he works on the car for some reason. They make it to their destination of the small town of Somerville and pull onto the property that Egon has left to her. Some interesting imagery of signs at the beginning of the driveway of a biblical nature, and as they roll up the driveway, the son mentions that the place is pretty much a dump, and he asked the mom,
maybe it's a good thing you never met your dad.
Let that one stick with you for a second. They get out, take a look around. The barn catches Phoebe's interest, and the door catches more of Mom's. Seeing she can't get in, she asks Phoebe to be a darling and break into her grandfather's house. Meanwhile, useless son just looks for sales service. After Phoebe is successful with her task, they go in and take a look around. Yeah, things look like a mess since Egon was pretty much kept to himself. But while looking around, the ground starts to shake and they gotta take cover underneath a table. Earthquakes. Trevor breathes a sigh of relief as he knows that they're only going to be there for a week, and that's when Mom breaks the news to him. They thought she had money saved up, and she lets him know that was before she had kids. What an asshole thing to say. But while they bicker and debate, something grabs Phoebe's attention. The PKE meter. She goes to have a look at it, and there's a knock at the door. An unexpected visitor, or a planned cameo, if you will. It's Janine, and she proceeds to ask them,
"Why are you here?"
They introduce themselves to each other, and Janine lets her know that she's a good friend of Egon's that kept the bills paid, and he had no money, only debt. Troubled by her ongoing money problems, she is shocked to find that the farm is worthless. So they go out to get something to eat, and now the son is sitting up front. Wait a minute, weren't y'all just sitting in the back when y'all traveled to this place? Now all of a sudden, one of you is sitting in the front. I don't understand this car arrangement, but just happened to notice it. No matter, but Stranger Things falls in love as he looks on upon the first girl he's probably ever seen in his life and hops out the car. Meanwhile, Mom and Phoebe talk about her making some new friends. At a counter, the son pretends like he can read, and the girl comes over and has a chat. He fails at flirting. The cooks make fun of him, and he walks off with his head in shame. Back at the car, Mom talks to one of the waitresses and lets her know where they're staying at the old dirt farm and asks if she knew her father, that she never met, and the waitress proceeds to tell her that no one knew him. Back home, Phoebe is in her room reading when her chessboard falls over. She goes to pick up the pieces and looks at it curiously, but doesn't think too much about it and goes ahead and tries to get some sleep. But Stranger Things has no time for sleep as he's trying to find a cell phone signal once again, like your typical teenager, wanders into the barn and finds something that catches his attention. He goes to have a look and we get the typical... But it's far too late. We saw that logo. Thank you, nostalgia. The next morning, our darling Phoebe awakes to find that the chessboard has changed. A piece has moved on its own, and instead of thinking too much about it, she proceeds to engage in a game. In the car, we once again get the not both kids in the back seat again, as Mom tells Phoebe to not be afraid to start a conversation at school. Stranger Things takes displeasure in this, probably because it didn't work for him at the restaurant, and tries to show why this is a bad idea by getting Phoebe to tell a joke.
How are the jokes coming along?
Why should you never trust atoms? Because they make up everything.
He shows his disgust for the joke, but personally,
I love it.
So he jumps out the car, fucks off to work, and Phoebe arrives at the building she has an interesting feeling for.
This is a state-sponsored work camp for delinquents.
On the way through the door, Mom bumps into our comedy element of the movie, Mr. Teacher of Summer School. But it seems teaching is the last thing on his planners as he just simply plays a video of Cujo for the class. Everyone seems to be thrilled. And then we're introduced to our more of a comedy element of this movie, good old podcast, and he proceeds to start convo with our Phoebe. We find out more about Egon as Mom goes to the store and has a conversation with the owner, and he says that Egon was a man of mystery, isolation, and he never farmed. Back in class, Phoebe is having the time of her life, and another earthquake happens. Paul takes notice and Phoebe comes into his little lab and she asks him about his work and finds out he's a seismologist, and they begin to discuss the difference in the waves that are happening in the town.
Yes, science!
But the troubling thing is the earthquakes are strange because the town is nowhere near a fault line or anything to cause them. Cut back to Mike, he's at work working in the freezer, and The love of his life walks in. She offers her hoodie and he gladly accepts, and she makes it even more awkward by saying it's her boyfriend's.
He was lying to me.
Out on the town, Podcast shows Phoebe around. They come across a theater that Podcast says is haunted, and Phoebe proceeds to tell him,
I don't believe in ghosts.
What? What?
What?
Well, I guess you don't believe in ghosts, but you believe in playing chess with an unseen force, huh? Sure, let's keep it moving. Podcast takes this a little personally as he wants to make a believer out of her. But seeing as his podcast is about ghosts and ghouls and things that are spooky in nature, this kid should be the one in this movie who knows about the Ghostbusters. But let's move on. He proceeds to take her to the Shandor mines we see at the intro of this movie and tells her the story of how operations came to a halt after people started killing themselves. They called it the Shandorian Curse and says that the carvings all over just showed up out of nowhere. Back at the barn, we get odd behavior from Stranger Things as he works on Ecto-1 that he found earlier. Okay, upon first watch of this movie, this scene stood out the most to me at first. Really hit close to home. Before I started truck driving, I was a mechanic. And working in the shop, we'll cover cars every now and then for certain reasons. But if it needs to work on it, we take the whole cover off. Now, maybe not everybody operates that way, but this being teenage kid seems to be curious about this car, wants to mess with it. Why do you still have the cover on? You might need to get inside of it to, work on correlating components. I just don't understand why the car is covered. Are they trying to create a surprise element that, wonder what's under that? We know what it is. You already showed us the logo. It's white. It's Cadillac. We know movie. Feeling they formed a friendship, Podcast asks to be lab partners with Phoebe and offers her to listen to his podcast. Back home, Phoebe's in her room and notices the chessboard again. More pieces have moved. What do you think about that, little miss doesn't believe in ghosts? How about a little bit more proof? One of the pieces moves right in front of your very eyes. As it does, the PKE meter goes off, and we know what that means. Her door opens by itself, and she proceeds to investigate. As the signal gets stronger, the lights in the house seem to guide her on a certain path. They lead her to the chair that we last saw Egon in, and it offers her a seat and puts her in a position to where she notices something odd on the floor. Some kind of puzzle. As she deciphers it, she finds out it's hiding the trap that Egon hid. The next day, the class is watching Child's Play, and there's a problem we found here. Now, this dialogue stood out to me only for one reason, because I reviewed this movie last year. Check out my Child's Play review for Halloween month 2021. First review I did, because it was the first movie that scared the shit out of me. It's on my channel. This channel. Go check it out. But anyway, what I have problem with is this is a major blockbuster movie, and they include a scene from another movie. So, you got your movie in a movie. But the fucking dialogue is wrong. Why in the hell would you do that? Why would you get the dialogue wrong? The dialogue actually goes like this.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
You stupid bitch! You filthy slut! Should you fuck with me?
It's just a simple fucking thing to get right. I mean, Jesus Christ, just watch the damn movie. Just cut and paste. We'll put that in there. And fucking, why could somebody make such a bad mistake like that, Sony? I'm ashamed of you at it, huh? What's that? It's PG-13. Yeah. Oh, well, okay then. Hey, good move. Hey, carry on, movie. But while this is going on, we have Podcast trying to force open the ghost trap that, for some reason, Phoebe brought to school. Paul takes notice and thinks it's a cool replica, until he looks at it closer and realizes it's the real deal. He tells the kids what it is, and, of course, they have no clue. And we're more ashamed of Podcast, who has a podcast about the scary and spooky things and ghosts and stuff, and he's supposed to be into this stuff, and he has no idea who the Ghostbusters are. Why should he know? Well, Paul proceeds to show him why he should know as they go to YouTube, and he pulls up the footage of the Ghostbusters from the 80s and how there hasn't been a ghost sighting in 30 years. What's her last name? I haven't heard a name yet in this whole damn movie. I know we've been introduced to the mom, the brother, and her, and I haven't heard a damn last name yet. Now, I know damn well they're watching this video on the YouTube, and and they're definitely going to have a list of the Ghostbusters names, so everybody can know who these heroes are. And you think she'd see, oh, Spangler. Hey, that's my last name. I guess not. I guess not. I don't know. Maybe they'll address this later in the movie. Reckless as it may seem, and thinking that this man is a grown-ass adult who knows the origins of this ghost trap, they proceed to go outside and try to open it. Not giving a fuck about the possibility of something being inside of it, they proceed on as if this seems like a great idea. But once they try to initiate the open, a little hesitation, and Paul decides to give it a little motivation. Unleashes this hellish spirit, and it fucks right off. Back to the mine. Podcast finds success, Paul finds regret, and Phoebe finds out that her grandfather was a Ghostbuster. Paul takes them back to the farm as we get another taste of this music from the old movie that just feels out of place. Podcast finds something of interest, and Paul proceeds to tell him it's an Aztec death whistle, and without hesitation, he just has to know what it sounds like. It's meant to ward off evil spirits, but it gets the attention of Mom as she comes to see who's these fucking strangers in her house.
Why are you here?
Mom remembers Paul, gives them a tour of the house, and the kids come across a book that has a picture of the demon they released, and they find out the story of Gozer. Recycled villains aside, we go back to Trevor, who's at work and finally gets the invitation he's been waiting for from the love of his life. He tags along with their crew to go out to the mines and finds time to sit and finally talk to the girl he's been dreaming about. But they are rudely interrupted by Luckily enough, they get out of the way before the demon shoots out. Should be a terrifying experience, but everybody just has a laugh. What the fuck? On his tour, Paul finds a map at the house that is actually older than the town itself, written in some kind of ancient language. Meanwhile, Phoebe is out playing with her PKE meter as she follows its indications of strength. It leads her to a shed, that leads her to a pole, that leads her down to a hidden lab. She looks around and finds some interesting things and confirms that her grandfather was a Ghostbuster and probably just learned her last name for the first time because we never hear it in this movie. And we get a cute moment of her finding his glasses as they're the exact same frame as hers. I like this. But also in her searching, she finds a model of the farm and a familiar backpack sitting on the table. The lights once again try to indicate her which way to go and what to focus on. She goes along with this, not believing in ghosts, remember, finds the tools that it's leading her to, and proceeds to start to get to work. But I'm sure this kind of activity is perfectly safe for this child, as, you know, this thing sitting on the table is only just a
unlicensed nuclear accelerator.
And as she works, she starts to talk to this force that is guiding her. You know, it's almost as if she is
beginning to believe.
In her room, she watches more video about the Ghostbusters, and her mom walks in, and instead of telling her about the father she said she never met,
Maybe it's a good thing you never met your dad.
she proceeds to close the laptop. Mom goes on to express her hate for Egon.
He's an asshole.
I'm a little more interested in, where is the mom's mother? Who was Egon's baby mama? But before closing out the laptop for the night, she writes down the phone number she sees on the screen. The next day, we have Podcast setting up some targets, looks like, and Phoebe is messing with the proton pack she just got done fixing. Looks like they're going to do a test run on this thing, so Podcast fires it up, and Phoebe proceeds to take aim. I do like this section because they do go through some nice, intricate detail of the pack. It looks real good, looks old and weathered, and real nice attention to detail. Sure, this seems like a good idea because this thing is only
An unlicensed nuclear accelerator.
Takes her shot and not only destroys the bottle she was aiming for, but destroys everything around it. But their fun is interrupted by a strange sound, and of course, they go to investigate. They're led into an old warehouse of some sorts, and as they look around and notice evidence of something strange, they find the strange phenomena. Phoebe takes cover and wants to make a plan, but Podcast has other ideas as he plays with his whistle again. This only pisses off our newfound ghost, and Phoebe fires again. Chaos and madness ensue, but she actually gets a hold of her target, calling on the Podcast to get the trap out and catch him. He fumbles and unsuccessful. Back at the barn, our mechanic Mike is still messing with Ecto-1. He tries to give it a start and, well, what only has to be the spirit of Egon gives him a helping hand, fix a wire, and he gets it crunk on up. So what's the next thing to do? Go get crunk.
What?
He proceeds to go on a joyride to see how the car handles well in farmland. Even tests to see how the car does in air.
Boredom.
This machine moves pretty well for something that's been sitting for at least 20 years, and good tires, sure, why not? He comes across Phoebe and Podcast, they let him know what's going on, and they hop in the car. Mom and Paul are out having a date, and we get a little bit more backstory into this family. Paul asks about the kid's father and says he just didn't connect with Phoebe. Well, I guess she feels the same way about him as she feels about her own father.
He's an asshole.
But for whatever reason, he was okay with Trevor. But Mom also feels that Phoebe keeps her out. Feels like a weak argument to me. As they drive, Podcast finds another gadget in the car, and Phoebe proceeds to tell Trevor that their grandfather was a Ghostbuster. Trevor mentions that he heard about the Ghostbusters stories in Manhattan, so now it seems that he's fully on board. They overhear a call on a police scanner in the car and figure their next move is to head to town to investigate the strange sightings being reported. As they stalk through the streets, they come across their fake Slimer friend. Phoebe finds a new feature of the car, a pop-out gunner seat, stares at her target with menace and proceeds to try to catch him again. Podcast somehow just figures out the car has a trap door underneath to release his new mobile ghost trap and sets it off. Chaos, madness, and destruction ensue as the ghost decides to get the fuck out of town and head back for the mine, but they're in hot pursuit. Phoebe takes another shot at him and actually catches him with the beam, and Podcast puts the trap to work and pulls him in. They celebrate their first catch, and Mike looks over and notices that he was at these mines last night. On their way home, this town finally shows that it does actually have law enforcement, and as they look for the registration or anything for the car, we get hit with another great moment of
nostalgia.
While incarcerated, Trevor tells Phoebe that when he was at the mine, he heard the voice Gozer heard from the mine shaft, but no time to finish that story as the love of his life is in the cell next door, but only to find out she's just there waiting on her dad. The law of the town. Phoebe, knowing her rights.
Don't we get a phone call?
Don't you fucking say it.
Sure you do.
Don't you fucking say it.
Who you gonna call?
Nostalgia!
Fuck you, movie. She should call this fucking guy.
Better call Saul.
But instead of calling him, she decides to call the number that she scribbled down earlier, and the commercials play for some reason. Why? Nostalgia, of course. And the number leads right to Ray's occult shop. That should go to the firehouse, but okay, I guess you can get numbers changed. Ray hesitates to pick up the phone, but money talks, and Phoebe introduces herself as being on business about the Ghostbusters and Egon. Ray sternly tells her that Egon Spangler can rot in hell, but she notifies him that he died the previous week. His tune changes and he begins to tell her the exposition dump of what's been going on for the past 30 years. Their ghost hunts got thin, the economy changed, the firehouse was bought, Peter went back to teach, Winston got into finance, he's running his occult shop, and then one morning out of nowhere, Egon just snapped. He spoke of how the world was coming to an end, took their car, all the traps, and a lot of equipment. But 10 years later, Egon called him saying that a psychic tornado was coming. But for some reason, Ray didn't believe him. Tells her to don't go chasing ghosts.
What?
Which is weird to come from a Ghostbuster, and she proceeds to inform him that he was her granddad. But before this moment can come to fruition in Ray's mind, the punk-ass sheriff hangs up the phone. Mom and Paul show up, and while Mom is interested with what the kids did, Paul's more interested in if the kids caught the ghost or not. They're released, and Phoebe demands they get their equipment back. She warns the sheriff that she caught a ghost in the ghost trap, and he just calls her crazy like her grandfather. Highly offended by this, she takes action and draws down like a true gangster.
Phoebe! Holy shit!
But Mom de-escalates the situation and they go home. And proceeds to go talk to Phoebe and tell her how she still truly feels about her father Egon.
He's an asshole.
And how he turned his back on his family and his partners. Partners? I thought you never met him.
Maybe it's a good thing you never met your dad.
But Phoebe only wants to know why she wasn't told her grandfather was a Ghostbuster. Mom doesn't bother to answer and just continues to berate him. Phoebe defends him while Stranger Things listens on upstairs. We get some activity at the mine, and then we get a shot of the most unbelievable thing in this movie. A fucking super Walmart in this tiny town of Somerville. Like I said before, I'm a truck driver. 48 states, Canada, Mexico, driven across this country back and forth so many times. But used to also do an account for Walmart, taking the product from their big warehouses to the stores. And I can't recall in my travels a town of this scale having a super Walmart. Probably just a nitpick, but it just stood out to me. Now, to be fair, we don't exactly get a full scope of how big this town is. It's a fictional town. Okay, that's fine. But all we really see is the main street and the mine. I really can't get an idea of how big this town is. But just for what they have given us, I don't see this place having a super Walmart. But, sure, why not? It is Walmart anyway. They probably just moved in there to move all the businesses out. Yeah. Continue moving. Nonetheless, we go to Paul, who is shopping. He peruses the ice cream aisle and figures that something very tasty to go along with this, some good old marshmallows. Why marshmallows?
Nostalgia.
And of course, let's take this even further. Not only marshmallows, but some more good old reminiscence from you for the first movie. Of course, not one big one, but a bunch of tiny little ones.
Merchandising.
Bewildered by what he's seeing, he proceeds to make his way away from this aisle of hell and proceeds to see something else of hell. Something also unbelievable in this movie, a functioning gas grill inside of a Walmart. Sure, movie, why not? But go home sometime soon, you're fucking drunk. But adding to these nostalgic times, we come across another memory tripper, the fucking Keymaster. Feeling he's eaten enough dog food, he decides to set his sights on some good old white meat. Paul gets the hell out of Dodge only to make it to his car where, well, you know what happens from here. The next day, the kids are at a restaurant talking about the history of these spirits and how Ivo Shandor was the one who is pretty much the central crux of all of this. He built the town of Somerville and built the building in New York, made with beams from material from the mine. Thinking this is a good place to start, they go to the mine and investigate. All the while, there's a nosy fuck sitting behind them who's just grasping onto every fucking word, but don't worry about him, because you'll never see him again. They use the old built elevator to go into the mine. How the hell did you figure this damn thing works safely enough to take you down into this hole? Along with the carvings and statues, they find a hole, which is dubbed by podcasts as the Sacrificial Virgin Pit Comedy. And this somehow leads to finding out that the son is only 15. Lover girl is appalled. Comedy! She thought he was 17, given the application he filled out for the restaurant, and quickly dries up quicker than the Sahara. But an item of interest, they come across the man, the myth, the legend himself, Ivo Shandor. And along the walls, they find a random sequence of numbers. Phoebe figures this out to be a
Countdown. With a countdown to what?
not so random occurrence of numbers, but actual dates. With the help of podcasts, they figure out they are related to dates of catastrophic events. The pit starts to show activity, and Phoebe leans in to take a closer look as she sees the souls of 1,000 damned motherfuckers trying to escape from their hellish prison. But wait, a safeguard kicks in to keep the souls suppressed. Egon was ahead of the game. A series of traps of blasters and proton packs kick in to suppress the souls back into their hellish bounds. Evo looks over in disappointment and wonders why his sleep is being disturbed.
Why are you here?
But as the souls suppress, Phoebe figures out that this is the source of the earthquakes. Realizing her grandfather wasn't an asshole, he simply sacrificed everything he loved to protect the entire world. They have to tell Mom now. But I'm still left to wonder if Egon was right and he had this evident proof. Why didn't the other Ghostbusters get involved, outside of Ray not believing him? This seems like it would have been proof enough. Back at home, Mom goes to look for Phoebe and comes across the PKE meter, and it begins to detect activity. Naturally, it also leads her down to the underground laboratory of Egon's, and Mom looks around and starts to make a slight realization. He speaks to her through the lamp again and points her in the direction of everything that he really wants her to know. He has been tracking her whole life. Realizing her father did actually care for her, she does not notice the mist coming down into the lab. Who could it be? Our good friend Zool. Wait a minute. Did Egon bring her down there to set her up? Damn, dude, that's savage. I guess it is true what they say about you.
He's an asshole.
As the kids head back to the farm, the great concerns stay on their mind. Wait a minute. You're driving? You're driving back? Wait one fucking minute. What were the charges again?
Driving without a license. Expired registration. Speed.
So did this asshole just steal the fucking car? Why is this motherfucker driving? He doesn't have a license. Let's add Grand Theft Auto to your list. Moving along, they get back and go to find Mom. Finding her, she proceeds to introduce herself. The kids look with great concern, and just in case for the people in the back that didn't hear it the first time,
there is no Mom, there is only Zool.
And despite being possessed, she seems to take a liking to podcasts.
Are you the keymaster?
Back at the mine, a possessed Paul finds his way into the sacrificial pit, disables the trap, and releases all of the trapped souls. An earthquake ensues and sends out a rumbling, tingling to the mom as she cuts tail and gets the hell out of there. The kids give chase and stop as Phoebe takes more notice of what exactly is written on the side of the barn. Investigating the dirt, she comes to another realization. This isn't just a farm, it's a trap. Darkness encompasses the town as things are looking grim. Phoebe takes them down to the secret lab and exposes them to the secrets that Egon was hiding. Meanwhile, by the rocky side of the mine, our possessed Paul and Mom meet up and do a little flirting.
I like your eyes. Thanks.
And they fuck. Suited up and ready to get a plan underway, the kids go to the police station so they can reacquire the equipment. But they are stopped short as the equipment is held in a cage behind a electromagnetic unpickable lock. That's something interesting for such a small town police station to have. Phoebe, feeling the stress, knows she can't pick it, but Podcast comes up with an idea. He opens the trap and releases their fake Slimer friend, who seems to have a taste for metal. He proceeds to eat through the metal, plan works, and they get to the goods. They get Ecto-1 back, Lovergirl takes one of the police cars, and they split up to start their plan. They race to the mines as our two possessed lovers take their positions upon the shrine. The kids make it in time to witness the events taking place, but can only watch as our new gatekeeper and keymaster take their forms of the hellhounds. With the process enacted, they release the cosmos of the supernatural, and our villain arises to take the final form, the true form of recycled villain Gozer. Also awake from his sleep is Ivo Shandor himself.
Why are you here?
He proceeds to tell Gozer that he built this place for him, her, it. But Gozer wants to have nothing of it and rips him in half. She seems to have more of a taste for dark meat. Gozer gets comfortable, but Phoebe decides to devise a little plan in conjunction with podcasts. She proceeds to do some stand-up telling her wonderful jokes.
What do you call a fish with no eyes? So a grasshopper walks into a bar, and then the bartender's like, "We have a drink named after you." And then the grasshopper's like, "You have a drink named Steve?"
I love it!
While Podcast positions his favored gadget underneath one of the hellhounds. The plan works as they capture the gatekeeper and Gozer loses true form. Mom is released, they grab her, and they get the hell out of Dodge. Now I have to admit, I did laugh at this part very heartedly.
Wait, what's going on? What's happening? Where am
Mom,
I?
it's okay.
You're kind of possessed. Possessed?
Welcome back to reality, Mom. They let her know what happened, and, well, with the events that have already transpired, she's all on board. They get chased by the Keymaster, but Phoebe gets quick to work. Mom, seeing this, realizes that her daughter is now, but before she can say the word that we're all expecting her to say, Phoebe tells her she's a scientist. They get back to the farm, and a little subtle hint from the sign at the beginning of the driveway. Hop out the car, and darkness looms and intensifies. Half of Gozer stalks through the field, approaching to our dear Phoebe, but she's not scared. She's ready to face this foe head on and intimidates her even more. Absolutely fucking badass. And just like her grandfather, she dares Gozer to approach her, tells Mom to flip the lever and hit the pedal to set the trap off in action. Lever Girl steps into the rescue, blasts Gozer with a beam, and Mike swings out of the Ecto-1 to add to the fray. And the damn little merchandising opportunities pop back into the picture for whatever reason.
Nostalgia.
With her trapped in the beams, Mom steps up and hits the pedal. The traps start to activate. Gozer in defense gets Lover Girl off the porch, and the capacitors prove to be not ready to handle this feat. The marshmallows prove to be a wrench in the plan as our Lover Girl gets possessed by one of the hellhounds. Gozer starts to reform, and all hope seems lost as Mom and Phoebe look on and face their final countdown. But a voice of hope comes from the distance. It's our trusty good old Ghostbusters. They get reacquainted and have a nostalgia-filled exchange of words.
I command you under the National Invasive Species Act to depart this world immediately. Bravo.
No time to talk. Go ahead and blast Gozer to hell. Using the method of crossing the streams again, they feel they will have the upper hand, but it just doesn't work. Something's missing. Gozer uncrosses the streams and uses them against them, putting them on their ass. As Gozer approaches our older heroes, Phoebe steps in to save them. Now she gives it all she's got, putting everything into her blast. Gozer counters, but from out of nowhere, Phoebe gets some help from a familiar soul. It's CGI Ghost Egon here to save the day and help his granddaughter take on this foe. A touching moment, maybe disturbing, but no time to think about it as the other Ghostbusters join back into the fray. Mom looks on as she can't believe her eyes, but with enough time passed, Podcast is able to get Trevor back up and running, and instead of shooting his beam towards Gozer, he decides to go back and try to fix the capacitors. With all beams running full steam ahead, Mom hits the trap again, and this time it works. Chaos ensues, the traps open, and Gozer is trapped. Finally for good. Now as things settle down, the guys look at this ghost Eon pretty much the same way the audience did. Phoebe goes to check the traps, Trevor goes to check on Paul and his Lover Girl, and Mom introduces herself to Peter.
Callie Spangler.
Spangler?
Oh, fuck off. Ain't nobody known your damn last name this whole fucking movie. You know how many problems we could have... Go on. Podcast meets with Ray, finds out that Ray is his only subscriber. You know, it's funny how art can imitate life sometimes. Winston seems like he just wants to make love to the car. Bill Murray remembers the size of the check he got for doing this movie, so he tries to shed a tear too. And Mom falls into the realization of what her father really did for her and finally acknowledges him. We'll call it a tribute. Sure, why not? Still better than Ghostbusters 2016. We get some heartfelt emotion out of everybody as Egon's soul finally transfers up into the heavens. Tears are shed and seen. but not quite yet without a shot of New York City skyline and the Ecto-1, maybe, traveling over the bridge. Now, what does this mean? But we can't end this movie yet without a mid-credits stinger of bringing back another familiar face who was nowhere in this movie, just here for pure nostalgia. A little more nostalgia with a cutscene from the old movies of Janine giving Egon a lucky coin that she still has. She talks with Winston, they talk about things, and essentially we get a setup for possibly something to come. And that was Ghostbusters Afterlife. You know, I think they did do a good job with it. You know, it has its ups, it has its downs. It's not perfect, it's not completely horrible, but for the timing, I guess it was definitely needed, because we are few years removed from that abomination, which is 2016 Ghostbusters. But the only fear I really had with this movie was wondering, are we going to be able to pass this torch on properly to kids? Works in movies sometimes it doesn't. That's just how it goes. But this one, I do believe they did a fine job, and I mean, I gotta say, it's a fine movie. I'll never say I hate it. I'll never say I love it. I will say it's better than Ghostbusters 2016. Join us next week for our next selection of Halloween Month 2022.